Good evening and welcome at the Stedelijk Museum live. And I am Luc Hogewerf, the assistant of Leonard Boy, curator of the Applied Science and Design from the Stedelijk Museum Amsterdam. And this year the Stedelijk Museum presents Dream Out Loud, a group exhibition that explores one of today's most relevant topics, social designs. The 26 designers featured in this show dream out loud about a better world and tries to figure out ways to solve today's complex social issues. And tonight we're going to speak with Formafantasma and in 20 minutes with Pavel van Houten. Simone and Andrea, welcome. Please introduce yourself as Formafantasma and the things you do as a designer duo.
Well, first, I'm Simone and
Andrea, nice to meet you.
And we have a design studio based in Amsterdam now called Formafantasma. But we graduated from Design Academy in Eindhoven in 2009, and then we decided to open our own studio. I would say that generally we are occupied with a lot of material investigations, and what we are really much interested in design is also being critical with production processes and let's say what is usually hidden behind productions.
Okay, and can we see the objects here as a critique on plastic or normal materiality that is used today?
Well, some of the works here, because we actually in the installation we present 3 different bodies of work. So I think definitely Botanica, which is this group of vessels here, are looking at the histories of plastics, and they look back in time in the period we call pre-Bakelite, in search for inspiration in materials which are more of vegetal or animal derivatives that could potentially be applied in production.
Okay, shall we look at one of the objects of this?
Sure. Well, for instance, I would say that the group itself is displaying various different materials, but in specific this one, for instance, pairs natural shellac with wood fibers, the top, and the bottom is copal resin, and the shellac is actually excrements of insects that colonize trees. And the copal is also a resin which started the process of becoming a fossil. So what we thought was interesting with this project was to understand and to look in this period where oil was not yet used in production process of plastic, and understand and rediscover some of these old applications of natural resins.
And if I look at the work, I see all those labels.
Mm-hmm.
And is it specifically the materials that are put on?
Yeah, in general, like what we like to do when, with some of our projects, like Botanica, you can also see it in Craftica, is to have labels. Because I think while with fashion we are really used to get information about the materiality of the things we wear, with object most of the time we don't. So with the label, we in the specific case of the vase, you can see all the composition that there are of material that there are within the vessels.
And by using new or old materials, do you also, it's quite, the vase is still the same form as a vase. Yeah. You don't question that kind of form.
Well, actually, the reason why we decided to work with very traditional forms, and also the pieces are quite handmade, is because there's a lot of cliché in plastic, as if it is always a material constantly stuck in being a modern or contemporary material, while we just wanted to reference that the histories of plastics are much wider than what we think. And in a way we try to discard all the cliches that connect to plastic. So if plastic is usually industrially produced and perfect, these pieces are imperfect and handmade, and the shape itself is also very, as you said, as you pointed out, very archetypical, which is also a way we work often, to start from very archetypical forms.
Okay, thank you. And so we go to the next group of objects, and I think this one is very neat with the spans on top.
So this specific work is called Craftica and has been developed for Fendi, the fashion house. And when they came to us, they asked us to work with their leftover. But let's say we were also interested in working with their leftover of production, but we were more also interested in including a different selection of leather. Because when we went there, we also understood how in fashion there is a hierarchy between precious leather and not precious one. And the one we use, actually, they are considered the not precious one. So like the salmon skin leather or the perch skin leather, or even like the pig, usually are material they are used for covering or for the inner part of the either bags or trousers, because they are not considered really precious.
In a way, the world work, because it was an old investigation into leather, was trying to push a way to remove some of the cliché that there is in the luxury industry, and to reflect also on the connections that there is between the food industry and the productions of leather. So all the skins we use come from byproduct of the food industry, which are usually underestimated as non-valuable.
Okay, and the bladder is also part of the Craftica?
Indeed.
Okay. And this group is also one of the projects and one of your latest projects?
Yes, it's called the Natura Fossilium, and in the project instead is looking at a very specific geographic area, which is the Etna volcano in Sicily, which is often considered just a place for entertainment for tourists. But what we thought was interesting in the place when we visited it is that the volcano, because it is active, it produces a lot of constant material through the eruptions. So, for instance, the black pieces here are an investigation we did via collaborating with various different centers, like the Volcanology Center in Catania, the Leerdam Museum of Glass in Holland, and some craftsmen in Venice, where we try to understand what was possible to produce with that material. So we sort of melted the lava and reproduced a sort of local glass.
Okay, so and this the black vase is?
It's lava which is melted and then cooled down in a very specific way, so that the material becomes a glass.
That's incredible. And also the stones on top of that is also the stones of that region.
Yes,
in
so
Italy.
sometimes often our works tend to look very decorative, but often we just implement elements as, for instance, in the box, which are actually the raw materials or that from where we started. So it's a way of telling the process within the work.
Question from one of the viewers. German's image wants to know, are all these pieces unique?
Are all these pieces unique?
Not all the pieces. So when we do projects like this, like for instance the Natura Fossilium, some of the pieces remains unique because of the process, which is very experimental. Like for instance, these pieces are unique pieces. But in this moment, for instance, we are collaborating with a Turkish company in trying to make the material into a very common material that can be produced for more basic products, like for instance tiles and bricks.
While the rest of the project that you see here, in any case, comes in an edition. So most of the time 12, or it depends. But most of the time they are limited because of the technique they are using. Like for instance, the Botanica vase are done within the studio, so and it's really time consuming. So we also keep the production limited because of the limited amount of material. Yeah.
Okay. And is it also, you say there's a company they want to use your materiality? Is that the conclusion of your investigation, or is this what you want to go to do?
Not necessarily. Some of our work are there to also question some cliché or notions that we have about design and production, but in some cases where it makes sense, definitely that could be an interesting way of continuing the work. And both with Botanica and the Lava project, we really try to understand the potential of these materials on a larger scale.
So also with Botanica, we tried to bring more in a step forward the materiality of Botanica. So we work with the Wageningen University and with DROG in order to try to find a way to make it industrially.
And we tested the materials on a 3D printer.
Oh, okay. So new techniques with the old
Yes.
materiality. Oh,
Exactly.
that's really... And thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
this is all
Thank you
for this
for having
evening.
us.
Thank you so much for watching this live feed from the Stedelijk Museum. And in a couple of minutes, we will talk with Pavel van Houten about his wallpapers. Thank you so much.